risk of having a heart attack. They are prescribed in very large quantities, and they will loom large in this book. This study found 192 trials in total, either comparing one statin against another or comparing a statin against a different kind of treatment. Once the researchers controlled for other factors, we'll delve into what this means later, they found that industry-funded trials were 20 times more likely to give results favouring the test drug. Again, that's a very big difference. We'll do one more. In 2006, researchers looked into every trial of psychiatric drugs in 4 academic journals over a 10-year period, finding 542 trial outcomes in total. Industry sponsors got favourable outcomes for their own drug 78% of the time, while independently funded trials only gave a positive result in 48% of cases. If you were a competing drug put up against the sponsor's drug in a trial, you were in for a pretty rough ride. You would only win a measly 28% of the time. These are dismal, frightening results, but they come from individual studies. When there has been lots of research in a field, it's always possible that someone, like me for example, could cherry-pick the results and give a partial view. I could, in essence, be doing exactly what I accuse the pharmaceutical industry of doing, and only telling you about the studies that support my case, while hiding the reassuring ones from you. To guard against this risk, researchers invented the systematic review. We'll explore this in more detail soon, since it's at the core of modern medicine, but in essence, a systematic review is simple. Instead of just mooching through the research literature, consciously or unconsciously picking out papers here and there that support your pre-existing beliefs, you take a scientific, systematic approach to the very process of looking for scientific evidence, ensuring that your evidence is as complete and representative as possible of all the research that has ever been done. Systematic reviews are very, very onerous. In 2003, by coincidence, 2 were published, both looking specifically at the question we're interested in. They took all the studies ever published that looked at whether industry funding is associated with pro-industry results. Each took a slightly different approach to finding research papers, and both found that industry-funded trials were, overall, about 4 times more likely to report positive results. A further review in 2007 looked at the new studies that had been published in the 4 years after these 2 earlier reviews. It found 20 more pieces of work, and all but 2 showed that industry-sponsored trials were more likely to report flattering results. I'm setting out this evidence at length because I want to be absolutely clear that there is no doubt on the issue. Industry-sponsored trials give favourable results, and that is not my opinion or a hunch from the occasional passing study. This is a very well-documented problem, and it has been researched extensively without anybody stepping out to take effective action, as we shall see. There is one last study I'd like to tell you about. It turns out that this pattern of industry-funded trials being vastly more likely to give positive results persists even when you move away from published academic papers and look instead at trial reports from academic conferences where data often appears for the first time. In fact, as we shall see, sometimes trial results only appear at an academic conference with very little information on how the study was conducted. Fries and Krishnan studied all the research abstracts presented at the 2001 American College of Rheumatology meetings which reported any kind of trial and acknowledged industry sponsorship in order to find out what proportion had results that favoured the sponsor's drug. There is a small punchline coming, and to understand it, we need to cover a little of what an academic paper looks like. In general, the results section is extensive. The raw numbers are given for each outcome and for each possible causal factor, but not just as raw figures. The ranges are given, subgroups are perhaps explored, statistical tests are conducted, and each detail of the result is described in table form and in shorter narrative form in the text, explaining the most important results. This lengthy process is usually spread over several pages. In Fries and Krishnan, 2004, This level of detail was unnecessary.